For nearly 2 million years, a single human species walked the earth. They endured droughts and ice ages, crossed deserts and forests, and outlasted every predator that threatened them. 9 times longer than we, Homo sapiens, have existed. Yet their name barely stirs recognition today. Homo erectus. Imagine a creature that looked startlingly like us. Tall, upright, broad-shouldered, with long legs built for endless journeys. Their story should be written into every classroom textbook, celebrated as one of humanity's greatest survivors. But instead, they are a footnote, overshadowed by the flashier drama of Neanderthals or the triumph of our own kind. And here lies the paradox. How could a species that dominated the world for nearly 2 million years fade into such obscurity? Why do we honor our short history and forget theirs, which was 10 times as long? This forgotten giant of our story holds secrets, not just about who they were, but about who we are. Because if Homo erectus could endure for so long, surviving in worlds we can barely imagine, then the real question is not simply how they lived, but how they finally disappeared. And that disappearance casts a long shadow, one we are about to step into. Picture the night 1 million years ago. The wind rattles the grass of an African plain. Lions prowl at the edge of the dark, and then a glow. Flickering embers, nurtured by careful hands, a small circle of fire that pushed back the fear of night. For the first time in history, a species was no longer entirely at the mercy of the wilderness. Around those flames, Homo erectus found more than warmth. They found safety, courage, and the beginnings of something greater: community. Fire wasn't just a tool, it was a gathering place. The spark became a heartbeat. Imagine them huddled close, tools glinting in the light, children wide-eyed as shadows danced across the cave walls. This was mastery over an ancient force, a mastery that even predators feared. With fire, the night itself became theirs. But fire was more than survival. It hinted at imagination, at foresight, at the kind of mind that would one day paint, speak, and dream. Fire gave them power, but it also gave them time. Time to think, to wonder, and to plan the next step. And that next step would take them far beyond the firelight, into the unknown. Homo erectus endured longer than any other human species, nearly 2 million years. Through changing climates, shifting landscapes, and endless challenges, they adapted and survived. And yet, they are gone. This is the paradox at the heart of their story. How could the strongest survivor of prehistory ultimately fail? If resilience alone defined humanity, they should still be here. But survival is never so simple. Did they endure because they found a perfect balance with their world, living steadily, never risking too much? Or did that same balance become their downfall, leaving them unprepared for rivals who innovated, who changed, who pushed boundaries? It is a haunting puzzle, because if Homo erectus, with all their endurance, could vanish, what does that mean for us, whose history is only a fraction as long? The paradox of survival isn't just their mystery, it's our warning. And to understand it, we must follow their trail, across lands they conquered before any other humans dared to go. From the valleys of East Africa, Homo erectus set out on a journey that would change human history forever. Long before modern humans dreamed of distant shores, they became the first explorers. Their footprints have been found in Georgia, in China, on the islands of Indonesia. Across savannas, frozen steppes, and tangled forests, they walked further than any species before them. Every new land was a test, and every test they passed. Imagine the determination it took to leave the cradle of Africa, without maps, without language as we know it, guided only by instinct and endurance. They crossed rivers that swallowed the unprepared. They faced mountains that scraped the sky, and still, they pressed forward. Were they chasing food, escaping famine, or simply following curiosity into the unknown? We may never know. But what is clear is that Homo erectus carved the first human pathways across continents. They were not wanderers by chance. They were pioneers by necessity. And in their restless journeys, we can see the first reflections of ourselves. Travelers, migrants, seekers of new worlds. A legacy not just of survival, but of movement, one that still beats within us today. Though their bones lie buried, Homo erectus has never truly left us. Their body plan, upright, enduring, built for distance, is ours. Their fire became our fire. Their tools became the foundation of our own. Even their restless migrations echo in our own urge to move, to explore, to cross every frontier. It is easy to think of them as alien, with their heavy brows and ancient faces. But in truth, they live on in the way we walk, the way we adapt, and the way we survive. Their story is not separate from ours. It is the root from which our branch grew. And yet, despite their legacy, they remain forgotten, a shadow ancestor hidden behind the more famous names of Neanderthal and Sapiens. But perhaps, by remembering them, we remember something of ourselves, something we can't afford to lose. This is not just the story of an extinct species. It is the story of us, the story of what it means to be human, told through the life and mysteries of those who came before. In this journey, we will uncover 10 incredible facts about Homo erectus that few have ever heard. We will walk in their footsteps, share their fires, and confront the questions they left behind. Were they the first real humans? Masters of fire? Explorers of the unknown? Survivors beyond compare? Or a vanished people whose warnings echo through time? The answers lie in fragments of stone, in whispers of ash, in fossils older than memory. And as we reveal their secrets, we may discover more than their story. We may discover our own. The first real humans? If you saw Homo erectus walking across a field from a distance, you might mistake them for one of us. Their long legs carried them with a stride almost identical to ours. Their torsos, upright and balanced, spoke of endurance. They were not bent, fragile, or half-formed creatures. They were athletes of survival, built to travel vast distances on foot. For the first time in human evolution, a body had appeared that was truly designed for the long journey. Where earlier species shuffled, they marched. Where others tired, they endured. Their anatomy gave them an edge. Less energy spent on each step, greater stamina for chasing prey, greater resilience in the face of changing landscapes. And yet, behind that familiar silhouette were faces that still carried something alien. Heavy brows, sloping foreheads, jaws stronger than ours. They were both like us and unlike us, a mirror tilted slightly away. But the shape of their bodies tells a clear story. These were no longer experiments in evolution. These were humans in form, if not yet in name. And with that body, they were ready to step out of Africa and into the wider world. Around 1.8 million years ago, Homo erectus made a decision that would forever alter the human story. They left. They walked away from the fertile valleys of Africa, away from the place where life had begun, into lands unknown. No maps guided them. No clear destination awaited. Only rivers to cross, mountains to climb, and climates more brutal than any their ancestors had faced. Yet still, they pressed forward. Fossils discovered in Dmanisi, Georgia, tell us that within a few 100,000 years of their origin, Erectus had already planted its footprints far from home. From there, their journey carried them east, to China, to the islands of Indonesia, to the very edges of the ancient world. Why did they go? Was it hunger driving them after herds of game? Was it drought pushing them from shrinking grasslands? Or was it something deeper, a restlessness, a curiosity, an urge to move that still pulses in our own veins? Whatever the reason, this bold step made them the first humans to leave Africa, the first global pioneers, and once their feet touched foreign soil, the age of humanity as a traveling species had truly begun. Before Homo erectus, there was Homo habilis, a smaller, more primitive ancestor. Their brains were smaller, their bodies shorter, their tools rough. They were clever, but limited. Survivors, but not yet conquerors. Erectus was different. Their brains were nearly twice the size of habilis, and their bodies stretched tall and lean. Their tools, shaped with symmetry and precision, showed a mind that could plan beyond the moment. They were no longer simply reacting to the world. They were shaping it. It was a leap that changed everything. With brains large enough to coordinate hunts, with bodies strong enough to travel miles each day, they became the first humans who could dominate their environment, not just adapt to it. But this leap came with a question. Had they crossed the line into true humanity? Were they merely clever animals, or the first beings who carried the spark of what we now call human intelligence? The fossils can tell us their size, their strength, their tools, but what lived inside their minds remains the great unknown. From the hills of Georgia to the plains of China, from the jungles of Java to the windswept islands of Indonesia, Homo erectus became the first human species to span continents. No other hominin before them had traveled so far. Imagine their footprints trailing across shifting sand dunes, their shadows stretching across frozen steppes, their fires burning on shores that had never known humans before. They were not confined to a single land or climate. They adapted, endured, and thrived wherever they went. In doing so, they became the blueprint of our species, restless, mobile, always pushing into the unknown. They were not tied to one place. They belonged everywhere. And yet, each step into a new world must have been filled with danger. Predators they had never seen, foods they had never tasted, winters colder than anything their ancestors had endured, but still, they survived. In their journeys, we see the beginning of a pattern that has never left us. Humanity is not just a species. Humanity is a traveler. Here lies the haunting question. Were they the first real humans? In body, yes. Their form was ours. In endurance, yes. Their survival eclipsed ours. In exploration, yes. They opened paths across continents we still walk today. But is that enough? To be human is not only to walk upright or wield tools. It is to imagine, to dream, to tell stories, to create symbols that outlast the body. Did Homo erectus possess these, or were they forever caught between two worlds? Advanced beyond their ancestors, yet not quite carrying the spark of art and language that would come later. Science gives us no certain answer. We see their tools, we see their fire, we see their migrations, but we do not yet see their minds. Perhaps then, the definition of humanity is not found in bones or tools, but in the questions they force us to ask. And nowhere is that question sharper than when we look into the eyes of their skulls and wonder what they saw. In the end, Homo erectus leaves us with a mystery. They looked like us. They walked like us. They conquered the earth like us. But were they us? Or something forever in between? Their faces, preserved in fossilized bone, show strength and endurance. Their tools show intelligence. Their fire shows mastery, but their silence shows limits. No paintings, no carvings, no written words, only fragments, leaving us to wonder. And so we stand at the edge of their story, unable to know whether to call them our kin or our shadow. Perhaps they were both, the bridge that carried us from animal to human. But what we do know is this: without Homo erectus, there would be no us. Their journey paved the way for our own, and their disappearance raises the question we cannot escape. If they endured so long, why did they vanish? And will we one day follow? Masters of Fire. Deep in the dry heart of South Africa lies a cave called Wonderwerk. At first glance, it seems unremarkable. Another hollow carved by wind and time. But within its floor of layered dust lies one of the most extraordinary discoveries in human history. Scattered fragments of burned bone, charcoal mixed into ancient soil, tiny traces of fire, frozen for nearly 1,000,000 years. This was no accident of nature. No lightning strike, no wildfire carried by the wind. Here, inside this cave, Homo erectus made fire their own. They tended it, preserved it, and fed it night after night. For archaeologists, these ashes are more than evidence. They are testimony. Proof that long before we arrived, another kind of human had begun to bend one of nature's most dangerous forces to their will. The first spark in Wonderwerk marks a threshold, a crossing from merely surviving to shaping the world. And once that flame was lit, it would spread. Across continents, across millennia, into every corner of the human story. But taming fire was not the same as simply finding it. To hold on to it, they first had to master it. For millions of years, our ancestors had watched fire from afar. Wildfires sweeping the savanna, thunder splitting the sky, igniting trees in sudden explosions of light. Fire was something to fear, to flee from, to observe at a distance. But Homo erectus did something new. They didn't just watch. They reached out, cautiously, and learned to keep it alive. Sparks were fragile, fleeting. A single gust of wind could end them. Yet Erectus learned to carry glowing embers from place to place, cradled in bark or stone, feeding them with twigs until the flame grew again. This was not invention in a single moment. It was practice, patience, persistence. It was the slow transformation of a wild, untamable danger into a companion. To preserve fire was to gain time, warmth through the night, protection at dawn, survival in places their ancestors could never endure. And once they had it, they could not let it go. Because fire was no longer just nature's gift, it had become their responsibility and their power. And in the darkness of the plains, that power shone brightest. Picture the African night. The grasslands whisper with movement. Hyenas laugh in the distance. Lions prowl unseen. For earlier species, the darkness was terror. But for Homo erectus, it became something different. Because between them and the hungry night stretched a circle of light. The fire crackled, embers glowing like eyes in the dark. Around it, Erectus gathered. The flames kept predators at bay, their heat cutting through the chill. Children slept safely for the first time in history. Adults sharpened tools, cleaned game, watched the sparks rise into the sky. This was more than protection. It was a transformation of experience. The night was no longer a void of fear. It became a time of safety, a time of rest, Imagine the shift. For the first time, humans had extended the day. Hours once lost to darkness were reclaimed. Fire gave them not just survival, but control over time itself. And with that time came new opportunities. Chances to change not only how they lived, but what they ate. Before fire, food was raw, tough, and dangerous. Roots had to be chewed until the jaw ached. Meat carried parasites and diseases. Calories were scarce, digestion slow. Every bite was a gamble between nourishment and sickness. But once Homo erectus placed food over the flames, everything changed. Tough roots softened, grains cracked open, and meat became safer, richer, and easier to consume. The fire released calories locked away in plants and flesh, giving Erectus more energy than ever before. And with more energy came a remarkable possibility: bigger brains. Some scientists believe that cooking allowed our ancestors to grow minds far beyond what raw diets could sustain. The hearth, then, was not just a kitchen. It was a cradle for intelligence. Cooking also meant variety. Where other species were limited by what they could chew, Erectus expanded their menu. They could live in more places, eat more foods, and sustain larger groups. Fire wasn't just survival. It was a revolution in nutrition. And as they ate together, a new kind of bond began to form, forged in the glow of the flames. Around the fire, Homo erectus found more than warmth and food. They found each other. For the first time, humans had a center, a place to gather, to share, to rest together. What did they do in those hours? Did they trade stories and gestures and sounds? Did they laugh, grieve, or plan the next hunt? We may never know the details, but we can imagine the flicker of faces lit by flame, the hush of silence broken by the crackle of wood, the simple comfort of belonging. Fire was a mirror, reflecting not just survival, but the beginnings of culture. It gave rhythm to life, work by day, community by night. And in that rhythm, the first threads of humanity were woven. The fire was not just outside them, it was inside them, shaping who they were becoming. And if fire gave us safety, food, and community, it also gave us something else: the very foundation of civilization itself. Without it, could we even exist? It is no exaggeration to say that without fire, there would be no humanity. Without it, Homo erectus might never have endured harsh winters, never cooked food that fueled larger brains, never created the spaces of safety where bonds and ideas could grow. Every flame we light today, in a hearth, a candle, a glowing city, carries their legacy. Fire was the force that allowed us to rise above nature, to bend the rules of survival in our favor. But here lies the haunting thought: what if they had never mastered it? What if those embers in Wonderwerk had gone cold? Would there still be us? Or would the story of humanity have ended before it began? Fire gave us a future, and from that future came everything: tools, art, language, civilization, all of it born from the first sparks. And yet, the tools they left behind tell an equally powerful story. The tool revolution. In the hands of Homo erectus, a new object began to appear. At first glance, it was just a piece of stone, chipped and shaped. But look closer, and it becomes something far more extraordinary: the Acheulean hand axe. These tools, symmetrical and sharp-edged, were unlike anything the world had seen before. Unlike simple flakes, each hand axe was carefully crafted, its edges sharpened on both sides, its shape balanced and deliberate. To modern eyes, it seems almost elegant. A pointed teardrop, designed not only to function, but to endure. Archaeologists sometimes call it the Swiss Army knife of the ancient world. With a single hand axe, Homo erectus could cut meat, chop wood, scrape hides, or dig roots. It was a tool that traveled with them, adaptable to every environment. And yet, it was more than just a tool. It was a turning point. Because to create it required vision, planning, and skill. The Acheulean hand axe was not simply born of necessity. It was born of thought. And to understand its significance, we must first look back at what came before. Before Homo erectus, there was Homo habilis, whose tools were among the first ever created. Their Oldowan technology was simple. Sharp flakes struck from a stone core, used for cutting and scraping. Effective, yes, but crude. Homo erectus took this idea and elevated it. Where habilis struck stones almost at random, erectus worked with patience and intention. Their tools were not only sharper, but stronger, designed to withstand repeated use. Each strike of stone against stone was measured, purposeful. The result was a hand axe that could last for years, perhaps even handed down from one generation to the next. This shift marked more than an improvement in technology. It was a revolution in thought. For the first time, humans were not just making do with what they found. They were designing. And design implies something more than instinct. It suggests imagination, vision, and perhaps even the beginnings of creativity. Which leads us to a remarkable observation. These tools were not only useful, they were beautiful. Across thousands of sites, Acheulean hand axes share something striking: symmetry. The edges balance perfectly. The curves are deliberate. The point tapers with precision. Function alone could not explain such consistency. Why would a hunter, struggling to survive, take the time to make a tool symmetrical? A jagged, uneven axe would cut just as well. Yet Erectus chose balance over and over again. Some scientists argue this reveals the dawn of abstract thought. To shape stone in a symmetrical pattern required more than skill. It required a sense of form, of aesthetics, of satisfaction in order and beauty. It suggests they were not simply shaping tools, but shaping ideas. Imagine the pride in holding such an object, not just as a weapon, but as proof of mastery. Each hand axe was a statement of ability, of knowledge, of identity. And in that statement, we glimpse a doorway into something greater, a window into the mind of Homo erectus. To create an Acheulean hand axe was no simple task. It required patience, dozens, sometimes hundreds of strikes to shape the perfect edge. It required foresight, the ability to imagine the final shape while chipping away the raw stone. And it required imagination, seeing not just a rock, but a tool hidden within it. This process reveals something profound. Homo erectus was thinking ahead. They were planning, rehearsing in their minds the steps to achieve a goal. They could look at the present and picture a future outcome, an ability that lies at the very heart of human intelligence. And when we hold one of these tools today, we are not just touching stone, we are touching thought. The ridges and flakes are the fossilized imprints of a mind at work, preserved across nearly 2 million years. These tools show us that Homo erectus was not only surviving, they were reasoning, creating, and learning. And as their hand axes spread across the globe, they became more than artifacts. They became the first global technology of humankind. From Africa to Asia, from Europe to distant islands, Acheulean hand axes traveled with Homo erectus wherever they went. They are found scattered across continents, evidence of a technology so effective that it remained unchanged for over 1 million years. With them, Erectus butchered animals, stripped bark, cracked bones for marrow, and dug into hard earth. No other tool in history would remain so universal, so indispensable for so long. And their endurance tells us something remarkable. This was not just a tool, but a shared language of survival. Wherever Homo erectus walked, these tools followed, linking communities separated by oceans and deserts with the same pattern of thought. It was humanity's first truly global invention, and it hints at something deeper, a shared identity, a common way of seeing and shaping the world. But were these tools simply the triumph of survival, or did they mark something even more profound, the dawn of human imagination? In every Achillean hand axe lies a question. Was it simply a tool, sharp stone for cutting meat and wood, or was it something more? Did Homo erectus take pride in its form? Did they recognize beauty in its symmetry, meaning in its shape? If so, then the hand axe may represent the very first stirrings of human imagination, a moment when function met form, when survival met symbolism. Perhaps these were not only weapons, but symbols of identity, gifts of courtship, or even the earliest glimmers of art. We cannot know for certain, but we do know this. In their tools, Homo erectus revealed a mind no longer bound by the present moment, a mind that could create, innovate, and dream. And from those dreams came a revolution, one that would carry them further than any species before them, across continents and into history itself. The great travelers. For millions of years, Africa was the entire stage of the human story. But then, something astonishing happened. Around 1.8 million years ago, a new kind of human took a step no other had taken before. They left. The fossils tell us this with certainty. In Georgia, the bones of Homo erectus lie buried. Jaws, skulls, and teeth that prove they had crossed into Eurasia. In China, there remains whisper of survival in colder, harsher lands. And on the island of Java in Indonesia, their fossils stand as silent witnesses to journeys that spanned oceans and continents. No other human species had gone so far, so wide, so early. These scattered bones, separated by thousands of miles, sketched the outline of an epic migration. But how did they do it? How did a species with no maps, no compasses, no knowledge of the world beyond Africa manage to spread across half the globe? The answer lies in their bodies, their tools, and their courage, and in the endless journeys that carried them through every kind of landscape on Earth. Imagine setting out on a journey with no destination, no guides, no knowledge of what lies ahead. This was the life of Homo erectus. Step by step, they crossed vast savannas where water was scarce, and predators stalked the herds. They waded through rivers, unsure if they would reach the other side. They braved deserts that stretched for weeks, and mountains that cut the sky in stone. What drove them forward? Perhaps it was hunger, chasing the migrations of animals. Perhaps it was desperation, pushed by droughts or dwindling resources. Or perhaps it was something else, an instinct for movement, a restless drive to keep going, no matter what. Each new horizon carried danger, but it also carried opportunity, fresh lands, new prey, untouched resources. And with each step, Homo erectus expanded the map of humanity, even if they had no way to draw it. One of the most remarkable stops on their journey was a small site in the Caucasus Mountains, where a discovery would reveal just how far they had come. In the rolling hills of Georgia lies the site of Dmanisi. Here, beneath layers of volcanic ash and earth, scientists uncovered fossils that changed everything. Skulls and bones of Homo erectus nearly 1.8 million years old, proved beyond doubt that they had left Africa far earlier than anyone imagined. These remains show a mix of features: primitive faces with smaller brains, but bodies strong and adapted for travel. Alongside them lay simple stone tools and the bones of animals, evidence of hunts carried out on foreign soil. Dmanisi became a gateway, the first clear sign that humanity's story had spilled beyond Africa. These pioneers were not tourists. They were settlers, learning to endure strange climates, strange predators, strange landscapes. It is here, on the edge of Europe and Asia, that Homo erectus showed the world what was possible: survival in lands their ancestors could never have reached. But Dmanisi was just the beginning. Ahead lay not only continents, but seas, and Erectus would face them too. Far from Africa's shores, Homo erectus reached one of their most remarkable destinations, the island of Java in modern-day Indonesia. To get there, they had to cross water. And this raises a question that still unsettles scientists. How? Did they arrive by accident, carried on floating debris after storms? Or did they build something, crude rafts perhaps, that carried them across channels to new lands? If the latter is true, then Homo erectus was not only a traveler by land, but a pioneer of the sea, tens of thousands of years before anyone else. What we know for certain is this: they made it. Fossils in Java tell us they survived there for hundreds of thousands of years, adapting to forests, rivers, and volcanic landscapes. They hunted, gathered, and thrived in a place once thought unreachable. And this expansion was not an isolated event. From Africa to Asia, from Eurasia to the islands, Homo erectus kept spreading, their presence leaving a trail across continents. Which leads to a profound truth: they were not just migrants, they were humanity's first global species. Long before modern humans set foot outside Africa, Homo erectus had already become a global pioneer. Their fossils span continents, their tools mark sites thousands of miles apart, their survival stretched across climates as diverse as jungles, deserts, and tundra. No other species before them had accomplished this. In their wanderings, they transformed from local survivors into world citizens. They belonged not to one land, but to many. This global reach tells us something powerful. Homo erectus was not merely reacting to its environment. It was shaping it, bending it to its will. Their tools, their fire, their bodies, all carried them into new worlds. Worlds no other species had claimed. They were, in every sense, the first global humans. And yet, behind their spread lies a question. Did they move out of curiosity, out of boldness, out of the urge to explore? Or were they forced onward by need, by struggle, by desperation? Here lies the haunting mystery. Were Homo erectus the first great explorers, driven by curiosity, by the urge to see what lay beyond the horizon? Or were they exiles, pushed from their homes by famine, drought, or disaster, wandering not by choice but by necessity? The truth may lie somewhere in between. They were survivors after all, opportunists who seized every chance. But in their endless footsteps across continents, in their willingness to push into the unknown, we see something more. We see the beginnings of that restless spirit that still defines us today. Perhaps they were both, explorers and exiles, wanderers and pioneers. Perhaps every journey carries both fear and hope. What we do know is that in their travels, Homo erectus laid the foundation for every migration to come, including our own. And yet, survival across the globe was not their only gift. It was their resilience against the harshest elements that made them truly remarkable. Surviving the elements, Homo erectus was built not just to live, but to endure. Their bodies were tall and lean, with long legs designed for distance. Unlike earlier species, they had sweat glands that allowed them to cool during long chases under the blazing sun. Their lungs could fuel endurance hunts that stretched for miles. They were not sprinters, but marathoners, survival athletes shaped by evolution. This design gave them a crucial edge. Where other species faltered in the heat or tired quickly, Erectus kept moving, kept searching, kept surviving. Their frame was an all-weather machine, stripped for efficiency, resilient against hunger, adaptable to extremes. This shape was no accident. It was the outcome of countless challenges faced across continents. Their bodies tell the story of a species that could outlast predators, outwalk competitors, and thrive in places where others would perish. It was this endurance, etched into muscle and bone, that gave Homo erectus the freedom to venture into worlds no human had known before. Worlds that were as lush as they were perilous. Far from the African savannas, Homo erectus carved out a life on islands like Java. Here, the landscape was thick with forests, rivers, and swamps. Resources were abundant, but unpredictable. Storms reshaped the land. Volcanic eruptions scarred it. Isolation made survival a delicate balance. And yet, they thrived. Fossils tell us they hunted and gathered in these dense, humid environments, adapting their universal toolkit to every challenge. With limited materials, they improvised, shaping the land into opportunity. Their persistence on Java lasted for hundreds of thousands of years, longer than most civilizations in all of human history. This adaptability reveals something critical. They were not creatures bound to a single environment. They could live in islands cut off from the world, shaping survival strategies anew. But the tropics were only one test. Soon they would face the opposite extreme, a world of cold winds and barren plains. Picture the Ice Age steppe. Winds howling across endless grasslands, temperatures plummeting, snow covering the earth in silence. For most species, this was death, but not for Homo erectus. Evidence from northern China shows they braved these frozen worlds, carving out survival in lands that seemed uninhabitable. With fire to warm them, tools to carve meat, and bodies hardened by endurance, they endured winters that could kill in days. They hunted large animals that roamed the plains, scavenged when they had to, and adapted to cold with persistence unmatched by their rivals. Even Neanderthals, masters of ice and stone, would one day vanish. Yet Erectus endured these climates for hundreds of thousands of years. Their resilience was not measured in decades or centuries, but in survival that stretched across millennia. The frozen steppe shows us the depth of their strength, but it was only one of many crucibles. When ice gave way to fire, they proved just as unyielding in the deserts of the ancient world. The desert is a world of scarcity, of empty horizons, of water hidden and fleeting. Few species can endure its merciless grip. Yet Homo erectus crossed and lived in these arid lands where survival meant adapting to nothingness itself. They scavenged roots hidden beneath dry soil, hunted animals that moved between oases, and followed seasonal rains with unerring persistence. Their ability to walk vast distances on little water, powered by efficient bodies built for endurance, gave them the edge. Fire helped them cook what little they found, and tools allowed them to split bone for the last reserves of marrow. In deserts, life was measured in small victories. A stream discovered, a herd tracked, a single night endured. Yet Erectus survived here for ages, proving that no climate could truly exile them. And in this, we see the measure of their resilience. A resilience that allowed them to outlast even their closest rivals. For nearly 2 million years, Homo erectus endured. Compare this with Neanderthals, who thrived for around 400,000 years before vanishing. Or with us, Homo sapiens, whose history spans just 300,000 years so far. In sheer survival time, no human species has ever matched Erectus. What explains this staggering longevity? Perhaps it was their adaptability, their ability to adjust to heat, cold, drought, and flood. Perhaps it was their simplicity, a reliance on tools and fire so versatile that they remained useful for over 1 million years. Or perhaps it was their persistence, their refusal to give up, generation after generation. Whatever the reason, their record stands unmatched. They survived longer than any of us, through conditions that would erase others. But longevity raises a haunting question. Was it success or stagnation? Did their resilience come at the cost of innovation, leaving them trapped in survival while others leapt ahead? How did they endure so long? Was it their diet, flexible enough to eat roots, meat, grains, and marrow? Was it their tools, simple, universal, and effective in any land? Or was it something in their behavior, cooperation, persistence, the quiet strength of community? The truth is, we may never fully know, but their record of survival suggests they held strategies we still struggle to understand. They were not the strongest, nor the most intelligent, in the way we measure intelligence today. Yet they endured longer than anyone, and perhaps in their story lies a lesson. That survival is not always about brilliance or strength, but about resilience, about the patience to persist, the ability to adapt, the courage to continue. It was these secrets, hidden in their bones and tools, that carried them through nearly 2 million years. But even resilience has limits. And one day, Homo erectus too would vanish. Strange faces, familiar minds. When we look at the fossilized skulls of Homo erectus, the first reaction is often a shiver of recognition, mixed with unease. The faces staring back at us are human, yet alien. Their foreheads slope backward, denying the tall domes of our own. Thick brow ridges cast deep shadows over their eyes, giving them a heavy, brooding expression. Their jaws were powerful, jutting forward, built to crush and grind tough food. To our eyes, they seem strange, almost brutal. And yet, in these faces, we can't help but see fragments of ourselves. The curve of a cheekbone, the proportions of the nose, the symmetry of the skull. These were not apes, not beasts. They were people, though different in a way that unsettles us. What must it have been like to look into those faces in life? Would we have seen intelligence in their eyes, recognition, or something more mysterious, harder to name? Their faces tell us of strength and endurance, but inside those heavy skulls lay something far more fascinating. The beginnings of a mind that was not entirely unlike our own. Beneath those sloping brows, Homo erectus carried a brain of remarkable size. At its peak, their cranial capacity reached nearly 3/4 that of modern humans. Larger than Homo habilis, larger than any ancestor before them, their brains marked a leap into new possibilities. This increase was not trivial. It meant more neurons, more connections, more processing power. With it came the ability to solve problems in ways no earlier species could. They could plan, remember, and adapt. They were not simply reacting to the world. They were beginning to shape it. Their brains may not have matched ours in complexity, but they carried the architecture of intelligence. The foundations of thought that would, in time, blossom into language, art, and imagination were already present. But what did this mean in daily life? How did a larger brain change the way they lived, hunted, and survived? The fossils can't tell us directly, but their tools and actions whisper of minds that looked forward, not just around them. And in those whispers lies the puzzle we still try to solve. A larger brain opens the door, but what walked through it? Did Homo erectus think in ways we might recognize? Their tools suggest careful planning, foresight, and even an appreciation of symmetry. Their migrations across continents hint at strategy and adaptability. But did they imagine beyond the immediate? Consider the hunt. To bring down large animals required coordination, anticipation, and shared effort. They had to picture not just the prey before them, but the chase to come, the paths it might take, the dangers of the terrain, the reward of the kill. This was thought stretching into the future. Yet, imagination is more than survival. Could they see images in their minds, create symbols, or dream of what was not there? The Acheulean hand axe, shaped so precisely, raises the possibility. Did they see beauty in form, or only efficiency? We cannot enter their minds, but each clue draws us closer to believing they had more than instinct. They had thought, perhaps even the first stirrings of imagination. And thought, once kindled, often carries with it something even more profound: emotion. Brains think, but they also feel. Did Homo erectus know grief? Did they comfort one another, show compassion, or protect the weak? The evidence suggests they might have. Some fossils show individuals who survived long after injuries that should have killed them. Broken bones healed, jaws worn beyond use, yet kept alive by the care of others. These were not just survivors of accident, they were survivors of kindness. Someone must have shared food, defended them, kept them alive when they could no longer fend for themselves. This points to something deeply human: attachment, empathy, connection. Around the fire, they may have shared more than warmth. Perhaps they shared bonds of loyalty, even love. We cannot know their words, but we can imagine their gestures. A hand offering food, a body shielding another from harm. In these glimpses of care, Homo erectus begins to look less like a stranger and more like family. And yet, they remain difficult to place, caught in a space between the animal they once were and the humans we would become. This is the tension at the heart of Homo erectus. They were not quite like us, and yet not entirely unlike us. Outwardly, their faces and forms seemed primitive, a step behind. Inwardly, their minds hinted at something astonishingly modern. They hunted like predators, but with cooperation. They roamed like animals, but with purpose. They shaped tools with their hands, but also with vision. They were, in every way, beings in transition, balanced between instinct and intelligence, between the natural world and the world they were beginning to create. What does it mean to be human? Is it the body or the mind? Is it the ability to think or the ability to feel? In Homo erectus, we see both sides, imperfectly formed, yet undeniably present. Perhaps that is why they unsettle us so deeply. They remind us of a time when humanity itself was still becoming. And in that reminder lies one final mystery: the question of whether they dreamed, imagined, or told stories like we do. What happens in the quiet hours of night, when the fire burns low and eyes close? Did Homo erectus dream? Did their minds weave images of hunts and dangers, or invent new possibilities never seen before? We may never know. No paintings on cave walls, no carvings or symbols survive to speak for them. And yet, their tools suggest imagination. Their survival suggests vision. Their compassion suggests feeling. Is it truly so far to imagine that their minds reached into the same mysterious landscapes of thought and dream that we do? If they did, then the distance between them and us shrinks to almost nothing. They would not only be our ancestors in body, but in mind and spirit. Perhaps Homo erectus was not just a step toward humanity. Perhaps in the flicker of their dreams, they were already human in ways we dare not admit, the longest living human species. If survival is the truest measure of success, then one species towers above all others: Homo erectus. From their first appearance nearly 2 million years ago until their final disappearance around 100,000 years ago, they endured through every challenge nature hurled their way. To put that in perspective, their time on Earth was almost 10 times longer than ours has been so far. They watched ice ages advance and retreat. Forests turned to deserts, seas rise and fall. Predators came and went. Entire ecosystems collapsed and reformed. And through it all, Homo erectus remained. This endurance is staggering. They weren't a brief spark, flaring and fading like so many other human cousins. They were a steady flame, burning for nearly 2 million years, adapting again and again, surviving where others failed. But longevity alone is not the whole story. Their record raises haunting questions. What allowed them to endure so long? And what lessons does their survival and eventual disappearance hold for us? To answer that, we must first compare their story to our own. Homo sapiens, us, emerged only about 300,000 years ago. In evolutionary terms, we are still children compared to the legacy of Homo erectus. We pride ourselves on our achievements: art, science, technology, civilization itself. Yet measured against time, our reign so far is a fraction of theirs. Erectus lived through conditions that would have broken most species. They didn't just inhabit one environment. They occupied nearly all of them, from humid tropics to frozen plains. Their survival was not confined to a lucky patch of Earth. It was spread across continents. This contrast is sobering. If longevity alone is the true yardstick of success, then Homo erectus is the greatest human species that ever lived. We, with all our brilliance, have not yet proven we can endure on the same scale. But how did they do it? What hidden strategies carried them through 2 million years of survival? The resilience of Homo erectus was not magic. It was built on adaptation. Their bodies were designed for endurance, capable of long-distance travel that allowed them to follow herds, seek new lands, and escape changing climates. Their migrations carried them from Africa into Europe, Asia, and distant islands, spreading them across the ancient world. No other species before them had such a wide range. This diversity of environments became their shield. When one landscape failed, another offered survival. Their tools were simple, yet revolutionary. Acheulean hand axes were versatile, durable, and effective. Combined with their mastery of fire, these tools gave them the ability to cook, to stay warm, to ward off predators. These weren't luxuries. They were lifelines. And beneath it all lay their adaptability. Whether in deserts, forests, or frozen steppes, Homo erectus found a way to endure. But survival comes at a cost, and in their case, it may have been a price too high. For all their endurance, Homo erectus changed very little over the course of their long reign. Their tools, though effective, remained largely the same for more than 1 million years. Their way of life, hunting, foraging, endurance survival, showed little sign of innovation. This raises a paradox. Was their stability the secret of their success, or the reason for their eventual downfall? By perfecting what worked, they guaranteed survival for countless generations. But by failing to innovate, they may have been overtaken by species that thought differently, risked more, and changed faster. In their caution, they endured longer than anyone. But in their caution, they may also have missed the chance to leap forward. This is the double edge of survival. Sometimes the very strategies that keep us alive prevent us from becoming more. And it is a paradox that speaks directly to us today. What does Homo erectus teach us about ourselves? That survival is not always about brilliance or invention. Sometimes it is about persistence, about adapting to the world rather than forcing the world to adapt to you. But their story also warns us. We are innovators, restless and ambitious, always pushing forward. Yet our time on Earth has been brief. Will our brilliance guarantee survival or hasten our collapse? Erectus endured through patience and balance. We thrive on speed and disruption. Their 2 million years of life remind us that humanity's future cannot be measured in today's triumphs, but in tomorrow's endurance. Perhaps in their quiet survival, they hold up a mirror, showing us both what is possible and what is at risk. And in that mirror lies one final question, one that still divides scientists today. So how should we remember Homo erectus as the most successful humans of all time? Proof that endurance is the ultimate form of triumph? Or as a species that lingered too long in stability, unable to leap forward, doomed to vanish when the world changed faster than they did? Their immense lifespan can be read as either success measured in survival, or stagnation measured in the absence of progress. But perhaps the truth lies in both. Homo erectus was not a failure, nor were they a final triumph. They were a chapter, a long, steady, crucial chapter in the story of humanity. And in the shadow of their record, we are left with a haunting thought. If even 2 million years of survival could end, how long will ours last? Their disappearance. For nearly 2 million years, Homo erectus was the unshakable presence in the human story. They endured droughts and floods, predators and famine, ice ages and heat waves. They seemed indestructible, the steady survivors who had outlasted every rival. And then, they were gone. Around 100,000 years ago, after dominating the Earth longer than any other human species, Homo erectus vanished. No grand collapse left behind for us to trace. No single catastrophe etched into their fossils. Only silence and the faint echo of a species that endured far longer than we have so far. Their disappearance is haunting precisely because of their resilience. How could a titan that weathered every storm finally fail? What broke the chain after 2 million years of unbroken survival? The fossils offer clues, but never certainty. What remains is a puzzle, a tangle of shifting climates, rival species, and shrinking populations. And it begins with the world itself turning against them. The world Homo erectus once knew did not stay the same. Across millennia, climates shifted dramatically. Grasslands that once fed great herds shrank into deserts. Forests receded, replaced by barren plains. Rain patterns changed, bringing drought where once there had been rivers. For a species that had relied on endurance and adaptability, these changes posed challenges beyond even their strength. Survival depended on moving to new lands, following prey, finding water. But as the Earth transformed, options narrowed, habitats fragmented, resources thinned, and populations dwindled. It is possible that Erectus, so skilled at adapting, eventually found themselves in places that no longer yielded what they needed. Perhaps their strategies, which had served them for nearly 2 million years, could not adjust fast enough to the new and harsher world. Climate alone may not have ended them, but it weakened them. And into this weakened landscape stepped rivals, younger and more formidable. Around the time Homo erectus was fading, new human species were rising. In Africa, Homo sapiens, our own kind, was beginning its journey. In Europe and Western Asia, the Neanderthals flourished, stocky and powerful, perfectly built for cold climates. Compared to these rivals, Erectus may have been at a disadvantage. Their tools, though effective, had changed little over hundreds of thousands of years. Their way of life was steady, but perhaps too steady, less innovative, less flexible. Meanwhile, Neanderthals refined their hunting strategies, and Homo sapiens began developing complex tools, symbols, and cooperation. The competition may not have been direct battles, but a slow erosion. Rival species could exploit resources more efficiently, survive in harsher climates, or reproduce more effectively. And in a world of scarcity, small advantages add up to survival or extinction. For Homo erectus, the arrival of these new humans may have been less a clash of war than a quiet replacement. A fading giant, overshadowed by the rise of new contenders. And in some regions, their downfall was sealed not by competition, but by isolation. By their final centuries, Homo erectus was no longer a vast, thriving population spread across continents. Instead, they were fragmented, scattered into pockets of survival. One of the last strongholds was the island of Java in Indonesia, where Erectus endured in dwindling numbers. But isolation can be a curse. Cut off from the wider world, these small populations lacked the genetic diversity to adapt, the numbers to recover, or the innovation to thrive. A volcanic eruption, a shift in rainfall, a disease. Any one of these could devastate such fragile groups, the very trait that had once made them global pioneers. Their spread across the world may have doomed them in the end. Distance became division. Division became weakness. And as their numbers shrank, another shadow grew. The spread of Homo sapiens, a species whose expansion would transform the earth itself. It is a chilling thought. Did our own species play a role in the end of Homo erectus? As Homo sapiens began leaving Africa and spreading across the globe, their paths may have crossed. Not in battles with spears and fire, perhaps, but in competition for food, water, and territory. Even without conflict, sapiens could have been the deciding factor. With more advanced tools, greater cooperation, and faster innovation, our ancestors might have simply outcompeted Erectus wherever the two overlapped. Slowly, inevitably, Erectus would have been pushed into poorer lands, smaller groups, and eventual extinction. And yet, we cannot rule out a darker possibility, that direct confrontation played its part. Did Homo erectus fall not just to climate and scarcity, but to us? Whether by force or by competition, the arrival of Homo sapiens may have been the final turning point. But no one was there to witness their last days. Their end remains shrouded in silence. No human eyes saw the last of Homo erectus. No one stood by their fires as the final embers went cold. Their disappearance left no stories, no records, no memorials. Only fossils buried in caves, stone tools abandoned in the dust, and ashes hidden in the soil. Their end is one of prehistory's greatest mysteries. Did they fade slowly, dwindling across generations until none remained? Or was their fall sudden, struck by disaster, rivals, or collapse? We cannot say. What we do know is this: their silence is not emptiness. It is a haunting reminder that even the strongest survivors can vanish. Their absence is part of our inheritance, a question carved into the human story. And in asking how they disappeared, we are really asking something more unsettling. If even Homo erectus could vanish, what might become of us? The clues they left behind. The world of Homo erectus is gone, their voices silenced, their faces forgotten. And yet, across scattered sites from Africa to Asia, fragments of their existence remain. Fossils pressed into stone, hand axes lying in the dust, ashes buried deep inside caves. These traces whisper across nearly 2 million years, offering glimpses into lives long past. Each discovery is fragile, incomplete. A jawbone here, a fragment of skull there, burned bones that hint at a meal long since devoured. Yet, when pieced together, they form a mosaic. The outlines of a species that lived longer than any other human before or after. But unlike the ruins of later civilizations, Homo erectus left no monuments, no written words, no carved stories. What they left behind is raw and elemental: bone, stone, and ash. And in those simple remains lies their true story. Their fossils reveal who they were. Their tools reveal how they thought. Their ashes reveal how they lived. Together, these fragments are not just relics. They are the only bridge we have to a vanished world. A fossil is more than a bone turned to stone. It is a time capsule, preserving the shape of a life once lived. From skulls and jaws to leg bones and teeth, Homo erectus fossils tell us what words cannot. Their skulls reveal the slope of their foreheads, the heavy brows, the growing size of their brains. Their jaws speak of powerful chewing muscles, adapted to tough diets. Their leg bones, long and sturdy, testify to endless walking. The anatomy of travelers. Found across continents, these fossils mark the vast reach of their journeys. From Africa's Rift Valley to the caves of China, from the steppes of Georgia to the islands of Indonesia, each discovery pins a point on the map of their global story. But fossils alone cannot tell us how they lived, how they thought, how they survived the daily struggles of life. For that, we must turn to the things they made with their hands, the language of stone. Scattered among ancient sites, Acheulean hand axes remain the clearest signature of Homo erectus. These were not crude flakes, but carefully crafted tools, sharpened, balanced, symmetrical. Their edges could cut meat, scrape hides, chop wood, or dig roots. More than tools, they are symbols of thought. To shape a hand axe required planning, skill, and vision. Each flake struck from stone was deliberate, each edge refined with purpose. Across hundreds of thousands of years, these tools remained consistent, as if they carried a shared blueprint in the minds of their makers. Every hand axe we uncover is a message from the past, a silent testament that Homo erectus was not just surviving, but thinking, imagining, and shaping the world with intention. And yet, stone alone is silent. To glimpse the warmth of their daily lives, we must look for fire, the faint glow of embers that once lit their nights. Deep in Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, archaeologists found something extraordinary: ashes, tiny flecks of burned wood, charred animal bones, and plants turned to cinders. Evidence of fire tended nearly 1 million years ago. This was not lightning's work. It was not wildfire carried by the wind. It was fire brought inside, sheltered, preserved, and used. For Homo erectus, fire was survival. Around it, they warmed themselves against the cold, kept predators at bay, and extended their waking hours into the night. Imagine them gathered close, eyes reflecting the glow, hands busy with tools, children drifting to sleep in safety. In those ashes, we see not only the triumph of survival, but the beginnings of culture. These remains of fire are rare, scattered and fragile, but each one illuminates a moment when darkness was pushed back by human will. And like detectives piecing together evidence, archaeologists use these fragments, fossils, tools, ashes, to reconstruct a story that is always incomplete. Every archaeological site is a case file in a detective story millions of years old. The bones, the tools, the ashes, each is a clue, but never the whole truth. At Dmanisi in Georgia, fossils tell of the first humans beyond Africa. At Zhoukoudian in China, charred bones hint at fire and survival in cold caves. At Java, skulls whisper of isolated populations holding out against time. Each site is a snapshot, frozen in place, waiting for us to interpret. But interpretation is never certain. Was a bone cracked by human hands, or the teeth of predators? Was a fire kindled by intention, or by accident? Was a tool shaped for beauty, or only for use? Archaeologists weigh every clue, test every theory, and still the picture remains unfinished. Each discovery deepens the mystery as much as it solves it, because the greatest evidence of all still lies buried, waiting to be found. For every fossil uncovered, countless more remain hidden. Beneath deserts, within caves, under layers of volcanic ash, secrets of Homo erectus still lie waiting. Each new discovery has the power to rewrite their story, to challenge what we think we know. Will we one day find evidence of language, of art, of symbols scratched into stone? Will a buried hearth reveal the first spark of culture? Or will a new fossil show us a face that looks even more familiar than we dared imagine? The story of Homo erectus is not finished. It waits beneath our feet, silent and patient, locked in the earth. And as we search, one truth becomes clear. The more we uncover of them, the more we uncover of ourselves. Because their echoes live not only in stone and ash, but in us. Their legacy in us. Look at yourself in a mirror, at the long sweep of your legs, the upright stance of your back, the balance of your stride. These are not new inventions. They are gifts from Homo erectus. It was they who first carried the fully human form, tall, lean, built for distance. Their bodies were endurance machines. They could outwalk predators, outlast prey, and journey across continents. Their narrow hips, long limbs, and springing arches of their feet made them the first true marathoners of the human line. We carry that design still. Every race run today, every migration walked by refugees, every step taken across deserts or cities echoes their endurance. Even our ability to sweat, to cool ourselves during long exertion, comes from their legacy. Their bodies were not just survival tools. They were the blueprint of humanity. And that blueprint remains stamped into us, a reminder that when we stand tall, we are standing on their shoulders. But their legacy was not only written in bone and muscle, it burned in something far brighter, the gift of fire. Every flame we light today is an inheritance from Homo erectus. From the first embers in Wonderwork Cave to the glow of modern cities, the chain of fire has never been broken. For Erectus, fire was survival. It warmed them in cold nights, cooked their food, and carved out safety against predators. But more than survival, it changed the rhythm of their lives. It gave them evenings of light, moments of gathering, the first hearths of community. That spark passed forward, generation to generation, through Homo sapiens, through every tribe and settlement. It lit the torches of ancient temples, the forges of iron, the lamps of explorers. Today, it burns in stoves, engines, and the electricity that powers our world. When we kindle a flame, we echo the act that defined them. Fire was their greatest invention, and it remains ours. But flame was only the beginning. In their stone tools, we see the first blueprint of every technology we have ever built. In the hand of Homo erectus, a shaped stone was more than a tool. It was the beginning of civilization. The Acheulean hand axe, sharp-edged and symmetrical, was their constant companion. With it, they butchered animals, carved wood, dug roots, and prepared food. This single invention endured for over 1,000,000 years, and in its simple, balanced form, we see the ancestors of every tool that followed. The plows that cut the first fields, the blades that forged empires, the chisels that carved temples and statues. Even the scalpels of surgeons and the steel of spacecraft carry the same principle: a human hand reshaping the world through crafted edges. The hand axe was not only practical, it was symbolic. Proof that humans could imagine a shape not yet present and then bring it to life. It was thought made stone. Every machine today, from hammers to rockets, is an echo of that first act of shaping. Civilization was not built on cities or writing. It was built on tools. And the first spark of that lies in Homo erectus. But their legacy was not only material, it was written into their footsteps across the earth. Homo erectus was the first great traveler. They left Africa long before us, carrying their bodies and tools into unknown worlds. They reached Georgia, China, and Indonesia. They crossed mountains, deserts, and perhaps even seas. In their journeys, we see the first expression of a restlessness that has never left us. It is the same drive that carried our own ancestors into Europe, the Americas, and Australia. It is the same spirit that sails ships across oceans, that launches probes into space. Their migrations shaped not only where humanity would live, but who we would become. In every journey lies adaptation, innovation, and survival. The wandering of Homo erectus is echoed in our explorers, our traders, our migrants, our astronauts. Movement is not just what we do, it is who we are, and it began with them. But beyond their footsteps, beyond their tools, perhaps their greatest legacy lies in the most invisible realm of all: imagination. We will never know what stories Homo erectus told, what dreams flickered in their minds as they stared into the fire. But their tools and journeys suggest the first sparks of imagination. To shape stone required vision. To plan a hunt required foresight. To survive together required memory and learning. In these small acts lies the seed of everything that followed: myths, cultures, languages, religions. Perhaps in their evenings around the fire, they mimed hunts, shared warnings, or comforted children with gestures that became the roots of storytelling. Their brains, nearly 3/4 the size of ours, were capable of more than instinct. They held the beginnings of reflection, of creativity, of wonder. And those beginnings are the soil from which our own minds grew. When we dream, when we tell stories, when we imagine worlds beyond the one before us, we are echoing something ancient, echoes that began with Homo erectus. And those echoes lead to the final question: are we truly a new species, or simply them reborn? Perhaps the greatest legacy of Homo erectus is not found in bones or tools, but in us. Their bodies are our bodies. Their fire is our fire. Their tools are the first drafts of our civilizations. Their journeys are the prologue to our own migrations. We like to think of ourselves as something new, Homo sapiens, a species apart. But perhaps we are simply the continuation of their long story, carrying forward what they began. In every step we take, in every spark we light, in every dream we imagine, we echo Homo erectus. Maybe we are not their successors, but their rebirth. The flame they carried for nearly 2 million years did not die. It burns in us still. And in that haunting thought lies a truth both humbling and profound. To know Homo erectus is to know ourselves. Conclusion: what it means to be human. We began with a paradox, a species that endured 9 times longer than us, yet slipped into obscurity. Now, as we gather their story, we see the truth of Homo erectus unfold. They were the first real travelers, the ones who stepped beyond Africa into unknown lands. They tamed fire, shaping nights of warmth and protection. They crafted tools with symmetry and purpose, laying the foundations of technology. They survived deserts, jungles, and frozen steppes with a resilience that has no equal in human history. Their faces were strange to us, but their minds were closer than we imagined, capable of planning, of care, perhaps even of dreams. And when they finally disappeared, they left behind bones, ashes, and stone, fragments that still whisper across time. In their story, we see explorers, survivors, creators, the very essence of what it means to be human. But being human is not just about the past. It is about the legacy that continues. Science gives us labels: Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Homo sapiens. But the truth of humanity cannot be confined to names in a textbook. It lies in the thread that connects us all, in resilience, in imagination, in the legacies we carry forward. Homo erectus was not just a species that vanished. They were a chapter of us. Their bodies shaped ours. Their tools became the blueprint of every technology. Their fire became the light of civilization. To see them as other is to misunderstand the continuity of humanity. We are not a single point in time, but a river of survival and invention. And when we look into their story, we find not just the past, but a reflection of the present, a mirror they still hold up to us. Every struggle of Homo erectus is one we still know. Fire for warmth, for food, for safety remains at the center of our lives, though now it burns in engines and electricity. Their migrations across continents echo in the journeys of refugees, travelers, and explorers today. Their endurance in deserts and cold mirrors our own battles against climate and scarcity. They remind us that humanity is not only measured in skyscrapers and satellites, it is measured in persistence, in the ability to face hunger, cold, fear, and still endure. When we see their hand axes, we see the seed of every invention. When we imagine them gathered around a fire, we see the first outlines of our own families, our own societies. The mirror they hold is both inspiring and unsettling because it shows us resilience, but also fragility. Homo erectus teaches us that endurance is possible beyond imagination. For nearly 2 million years, they adapted to every environment the Earth could offer. They show us that survival is not always about brilliance or complexity. Sometimes it is about patience, balance, and persistence. And yet, their disappearance reminds us of fragility. Even the most enduring species can vanish. Even the strongest strategies can fail when the world changes too quickly. Their story is not just one of triumph. It is also a warning. For us, the lesson is clear. Survival cannot be taken for granted. Innovation alone will not save us, nor will stability. It is the combination, resilience with imagination, that determines whether a species endures. Homo erectus carried resilience further than anyone, and still they fell. Which leaves us with the final, haunting question. If they endured for nearly 2 million years, what will become of us? 2 million years of survival ended in silence. No one saw their last fire burn out. No one heard their final footsteps fade. Homo erectus endured longer than any human species, before or since, and then vanished. What does that mean for us? We are brilliant, inventive, restless. But our time on Earth so far is short, just 300,000 years, a fraction of their reign. Will we outlast them? Or are we destined to vanish even faster, undone by our own brilliance or by forces beyond our control? Their story lingers as both inspiration and warning. It asks us to measure humanity, not only in what we build, but in how long we endure. And so, we are left with the question they cannot answer, the question only we can. If Homo erectus survived for 2 million years, how many years will belong to Homo sapiens?